Today, we'll be teaching a lesson about how to use mental math strategies in second grade. I'm Miss Jackman.
And I'm Miss Kirky, and we will be co-teaching this lesson.
We are teaching this math lesson to a second grade class that's made up of about 20 students. We are allowing 60 minutes of class time to teach this lesson. This includes the teaching time, guided practice / independent practice time, and then a time for a short assessment at the end.
There are a few students with IEPs or 504 plans that require special considerations and accommodations. During the guided practice time during the lesson, these students will be pulled into a small group for more intensive work with me. Student A has been diagnosed with ADHD and will be given special accommodations during this lesson. They will be allowed to have extended time on assignments and will be seated at the front of the classroom to help avoid any distractions. Student B is also diagnosed with ADHD and requires extended time on assignments. They have the opportunity to have flexible seating and will be provided with manipulatives when needed for classwork. Student C has been diagnosed with a specific learning disability in math. The accommodations and modifications that will be provided are extended time on assessments and assignments. They will be provided with manipulatives when needed during classwork, and they will also be given fewer questions on some assignments. The assessment for this lesson requires that the students are timed when completing the math problems. These 3 students will receive an accommodation. They will only be graded on the accuracy of the questions that they give and will not be timed like the rest of the class. They need to answer correctly 70% of the math problems on the Rocket Math worksheet to pass.
So in our classroom, student D and student E have shown they don't always get along well with each other. They have also shown certain patterns of violence toward one another that could be distracting or harmful to themselves and their peers during class time. A behavior intervention plan has been created that requires them to be seated away from each other so that their interactions with each other are minimal. However, we have also found that these are both students who can sometimes have attention problems, so we place them on opposite sides of the room but towards the front so that they can pay attention and it's easy for us to manage their behavior in the classroom.
So the goals for this lesson are to teach the students to be able to fluently add within 20 using mental math strategies, and for them to memorize all sums of 2 one-digit numbers.
The reason that we feel this is important and the reason we're teaching this lesson is because we believe that basic mental math strategies are important for the development of their future math skills. Feel that when students are able to complete simple math problems from memory, it will be easier for them to do larger, more difficult problems in the future.
This is the second grade Common Core state standard that we're using to guide this math lesson, and it is fluently add and subtract within 20 using mental math strategies, and by the end of second grade, know from memory all sums of 2-digit numbers.
The I can statements that we developed based on the standards we are using and the goals that we created are: I can add all sums of 2 one-digit numbers from memory, and I can subtract all differences of 2 one-digit numbers from memory. These will be reviewed with the class before the lesson so the students are aware of what they're expected to learn. The statements will be written on the whiteboard so that the students and the teachers can refer to them throughout the lesson if needed, and they will also be revisited at the end of the lesson to make sure that the goals for the day were met and that each student is able to or was able to complete the expectations of the lesson.
So to start this lesson, the students will be sitting in their assigned seats. The students who require accommodated seating, those arrangements will be provided for them. For example, we have students with ADHD that need to be placed in the front of the classroom and a couple of students with behavior needs that need to be separated.
So Ms. Jackman and I, we will be at the front of the room on opposite sides to ensure proper classroom management needs are met.
I'll be working from the document camera, and Ms. Kirky will be at the whiteboard writing example questions on the board and checking in with the students who are seated up front to make sure that they are staying on task.
After the instruction time, students who require special accommodations will go with me for guided practice, and then the students who can work independently will be able to move around the room to complete their work. Ms. Jackman will be walking around the room at this time to check in with students and answer any questions they may have.
The students who are working independently will have a worksheet with about 10 questions on it, and the students working with Ms. Kirky for guided practice will only be required to answer about 6 questions just for time.
And then during the guided practice, I will be using base 10 blocks as manipulatives for the students to have visuals for each question, and then the students will also be able to have base 10 blocks to work with themselves.
After the guided independent work time, the class will return to their seats and we'll go through the worksheet to check answers to make sure that kids understood the lesson and they've met their goals. And then we'll answer any questions the students might still have and go over our can statements with them to make sure that we've met our goals for the day.
This is just an example of the worksheet that we have for the lesson, and like we said, for the general population of the class, I guess, they'll receive a worksheet with 10 questions on it. They'll work on, and I, Ms. Jackman, will be walking around to make sure that the students have their questions answered and that they're staying on track, and then Ms. Kirky will be in the back of the room with a similar worksheet that has about 6 questions on it for our IEP students and like for small group work to make sure that they are understanding the tasks of the day. So to assess the students on the information gained from this lesson, they will do a timed Rocket Math worksheet made on Elluminate. And so Rocket Math is a timed assessment used for mental math questions. Students will be given a picture of a rocket, just like this one on this page. And they will use this as a record sheet to keep track of their assessments. Each day, students will be given 60 seconds to complete a worksheet with 40 questions. And if the student answers 80% of the questions correctly, they will be considered successful and they will get to color in a level on their rocket record sheet. Even if the lesson for the day is not related to mental math, we'll still do a rocket math assessment to make sure that the students are practicing their mental math skills. The students who will not be timed as required by their IEPs will have to complete 70% of the questions on the worksheet. And then that's it. So our data that we gained from the assessment is that we had 12 of our 20 students pass with 80% or higher correct in the 60 seconds that we gave them, so they were able to color a section on their Rocket Math record sheet, and they'll move on to the next level for tomorrow's assessment. The 3 students we have that didn't pass, they don't have IEPs. They didn't pass the section of the Rocket Math, and they'll be assessed again at this same level tomorrow. Student A, one of our students with ADHD, did pass this section with the accommodations that were required by their IEP, so they were not timed. Student B did not pass this section of the assessment when given the required accommodations from their IEP, and will be assessed again at their current level. Student C did not pass this section, and we've actually decided to move them down one level in Rocket Math just to make sure that they are mastering the mental math strategies that we've been teaching.
And for our grade books, Ms. Jackman is the record teacher for the math and science lessons, and then I am the record teacher for social studies and English. And then we'll be using the gradebook feature on Elluminate to keep track of our grades and also progress monitor our class. And then our gradebook will be based on a point system, so that is how the students will be graded.